Welcome to Your Health is Your Wealth. My name is Argo Duenas and I'm your host for today. I'm also the owner of Back to Nature Health and Wellness Center, a local holistic wellness center that has served the Baltimore, D.C., Virginia, Eastern Shore area for over 28 years. I have as my special guest today Dr. George Yu. Dr. Yu is a surgical oncologist, urological oncologist, and get this now, a expert on sex hormone endocrinology and cancer metabolism. Dr. Yu has been trained at Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and is a clinical professor of urology at the George Washington Hospital Center. Today, Dr. Yu is here to inspire, enlighten, and empower you to take charge of your life and your health. As you know, we do have a health crisis in America, and especially Anne Arundel County, the state of Maryland, we still have one of the highest cancer death rates in the nation. Breast cancer, lung cancer, and prostate cancer. We also have some alarming statistics that it is estimated in the year of 2017, this year, 1,688,780 people will be diagnosed with cancer. And out of that amount, 660,920 is estimated to die. We are in a crisis situation. My grandfather died of cancer, my brother died of pancreatic cancer, and my sister had stomach cancer. Cancer is touching all families across the board. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what kind of cars you drive, or where you live. Dr. Yu, I am really grateful to you today for taking time out of your busy schedule today to be here with me to touch, move, and inspire our viewers. So, Dr. Yu, tell us a little bit about yourself, just a little bit, because I know your resume is pretty extensive, but you are now in the forefront of a movement to change the paradigm shift in the medical establishment when it comes to cancer and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
So, I've been a surgical oncologist for 35 years, and one of the things that we've always looked at was the slides after we finish the surgery. And of course, when you look at our traditional slides, you see the nucleus that looks very abnormal. But I wish back then that I would have seen the electron microscopy, because you see these small little organelles called mitochondria, which is your basic energy packets. And they are aberrant as heck. So if I had known that, I think we would have been moving ahead a long time ago. But the important thing that you have to remember is that when you see a surgeon or an oncologist with a cancer, they usually say, well, just follow what we want you to do. You can eat anything you want. But in fact, that's not correct. The paradigm shift is that the science of mitochondrial bioenergetics, just a short term for how the cancer eats. So I did a YouTube once on starving cancer cells to death, and it's all been very well confirmed by science. So we know this. One of my old professors at Johns Hopkins, Albert Leninger and Pete Peterson, actually showed all these abnormal cells that had funny looking, what I call dumbbell shape mitochondria. And we're making it so simple that we say that these are not normal and they can only eat sugar. They ferment. So to make it as simple as possible, they act like yeast. And you know how hard it is to kill mold.
Absolutely.
And that's how they live. They don't have any function. And our whole point is that you can do something by changing the fuel that feeds these cancers by not eating sugar and carbohydrates, but eating more oils. It's just popular, right? There was the Atkins diet because they want to look a certain way, but actually it's not so good. The biggest problem that we had with Atkins people was they stank. They had stools collecting in their colon and they couldn't get it out. that's why many of them stop using that system. You see,
Because of
so
too much protein.
well, it's undigested.
That's it,
That's the
right.
problem.
No
And
fiber.
so that's it's an exaggeration, and actually, it's not the right way to eat. You do need meat. I'm a great believer in that, but I think that as you age, you can't digest and break it down easily. Okay.
Is that because we don't make as much stomach acids?
Well, that's part of it. That's well known. Your gastrin decreases, your hydrochloric acid decreases, and your motility decreases. So I always say, I think one of the big, I gave a interview, and it really sold out well to the geriatric and retired folks, and they said that it was popular because I said you have to eat for your right age. You can't be eating the same thing that a 19-year-old is eating, because he could digest it, he moves it right out.
Right.
Just like a lion has a short colon and it can get rid of anything, so they could eat anything.
Okay.
You know, so you know, there are those problems. There are problems even with a protein amino acid called glutamate.
Yes.
That causes, the cancers can use that. So yeah, they start off using sugars and carbohydrates, but then they became very smart and they change, and they start changing the way they get their fuel. So in a way, you know, Tom Seyfried and I wrote a paper on the way you have to sequentially treat the patients, not only nutritionally, then you have to have blocking agents that block the mitochondrial abnormalities and what we call fermentation or glycolysis. And then you may even have to use chemotherapy, because in low doses, and you can accentuate that by fasting beforehand.
Okay, so Dr. Yu, let's talk about the colon a little bit, because I know that you are an advocate of keeping your colon clean and healthy. Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
So one of the my favorite stories is Ray Lewis was on
Yes.
television, and they said, "How come you look so good?" And he says, "Blah blah blah blah," and I do coffee enemas. So all of a sudden, everybody was talking about coffee enemas. But what he's doing basically is helping the movement of residual material in our long colon. As a surgeon, because I use the colon a lot for reconstruction, I had to open and close it, and believe it or not, it looked pretty bad. And the people who use digestive enzymes, who use probiotics and bitters and aloe vera, their colons look beautiful, nice and pink, and not many diverticulosis.
Right.
You know.
Well, and as a colon hydrotherapist, a certified colon hydrotherapist, I see people every day, Dr. Yu, and as I was sharing with you just a few minutes ago off camera, that I have clients who come in who go to the bathroom once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. And some wind up in the hospital, in the ER, you know, with putrid gas and impaction, and sometimes, in worst case scenarios, surgery. So now let's talk about why cancer and Alzheimer's have a common feature.
One thing I like to mention, when I was a missionary doctor, I worked with Dr. Irvine, a colleague of Dennis Burkett, and he said, and I confirmed this when I was in Africa, I never saw colon cancer or diverticulosis because they ate so much fiber.
Right.
So that's it's a very important thing. Apple has one of the highest fiber rates. Okay, so so the conference, as you know, pointed out two areas: cancers and Alzheimer's.
Right.
And why did we do that? Because in Alzheimer's, it is a form of diabetes type 3, which starts about 10 to 20 years before you lose your memory.
Okay, let's stop there, because when I was reading your information, you mentioned diabetes type 3.
Right.
Now, what you're saying, that's Alzheimer's?
Yes.
A form of
it's
Alzheimer's.
Well, it may be the main cause.
Okay.
And what you hear about amyloid and whatnot may be the result of that. But we know from PET scans, looking at the sugar content in the brain, that it decreases in those people who lose their memory. And it happens gradually, and the problem is the sugar's around, but some of it can't get through because there's some transporters called GLUT1 and 3, that can't get into the cell, and also there's an enzyme, pyrodehydrogenase, which is missing, and they can't use it, so they can't get the fuel.
So it's blocking the blood,
The sugar from being used
into the blood-brain barrier.
and that's
It can't get there.
and that's what we call metabolism.
Right,
And in
okay.
cancer, it's the same kind of problem. It's a metabolic processing problem.
So, for our viewers, if you put this in layman's terms, what can we do in terms of preventing Alzheimer's?
Well, there was a beautiful piece of work done by Mary Newport. She's a colleague of mine, and her husband he was a CPA who developed Alzheimer's, and she put him on all the 3 drugs, which is common. Nothing worked. A few studies, and nothing worked. So she decided to use coconut oil because coconut oil has what we call medium chain fatty acids, different from long chain, and they don't need to go through the long processing. They go right into the liver, convert it to ketones, and it becomes a fuel for the brain, and he got better.
Wow.
So that caused a big ruckus about 6-7 years ago, and the public got to know about it. The Alzheimer's Association actually refused to let her show her brochures, yet the public got it, and that went wild.
Wow.
And so that's why we felt that the importance of reaching the public, the ones who need it, are so important in what we call the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell, one of my favorite authors, wrote. The tipping point has to occur, and it's not just people with white coats and scientists. It has to be coming from the common person who realizes, hey, I feel better.
Right.
We see that all the time. We have patients who lose their memory. We give them some Exona or coconut oil, and they start getting better.
Well,
So it's a fuel.
it is a fuel for the brain.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to segue now into
Well, let me
your-
maybe finish the cancer part.
okay.
Why is the cancer similar to Alzheimer's? Because their problem is they getting too much
Much.
sugar. The classical model of a brain cancer is glioblastoma, and that is just loaded with sugar. You can see it on the PET scan. So their processing is they're using so much sugar to the advantage of the cancer, whereas in Alzheimer's, a specialized cell is not getting enough.
Okay. So
The same mechanism.
Same mechanism, but one is the
Too much,
uptake, and
one
one is
doesn't
too
get-
much and one is too low.
That's right.
All right, so we don't have a lot of time right now, so we're going to really focus on this historical event that's going to be taking place November the 3rd and the 5th at the Maritime Conference in Linthicum, Maryland. It's a weekend seminar. They're going to be
It's a retreat.
There are going to be 35 presenters. You're going to have
40.
40 presenters. Okay, thanks for the correction. But you're going to have live food demonstrations, chefs, nutritionists. Is that correct?
Right. So the idea is the first time, maybe in the United States and maybe the world, where we're mixing scientists, clinicians, and nutritionists and chefs, because the chefs have to make the food taste good. If it doesn't taste good, no matter how healthy, nobody wants to take it. So we felt that we also wanted the public to come, because it's the public and, of course, the philanthropists, because some of the researchers have a hard time getting funding. So I said, this has to be a union of journalists, common people, proactive people, intelligent people, and corporations and scientists to understand this concept that you have some power to change the course of your destiny without being totally passive, you see. So that's why it's unique, and to put on a show where you can house 900 people is not an easy task. So I have a whole team doing this, and we want to try this because we want this to really be a resource for the public, for the public in Annapolis, the public in all over the United States, and we have people coming from all over the world.
Absolutely. Can you speak about some of the presenters? These are
Yeah,
some of the brightest
so
and scientific minds
So
in the world.
we have four world-class chefs 1st. It's very important to me. But we have people like Russell Swerdlow, who is basically, I believe, the mitochondria king of the world. He understands bioenergetics and energy for the animal. And he says a lot of our diseases starts with a poor functioning energy and oxygen. So he'll be there and he'll talk about mitochondria and estrogen.
Okay.
Okay? The second person is Richard Veach, who's basically the developer of the end product of medium chain fatty acids, which is beta hydroxybutyrate. He's a world class, and probably I would say he's probably one of the greatest researchers in the world. We have Donald Stein, the father of progesterone hormone and the brain. Okay, and of course we have Yang Ko, who is the developer of 3-bromopyruvate, which is one of the finest metabolic blocking agents. In conjunction with your diet, does do beautiful things. We looked at the NIH screening, and all the human cancers at 100 micromolar direct contact with the 3BP, they die.
Wow.
You see, so it has very little side effects, and it's so powerful. So we're not saying you don't use cytotoxic drugs. I'm a big fan of hospitals, surgery, and all that, but maybe we can combine these things, you see.
So today, Dr. Yu, we are here to empower, enlighten, and reduce human suffering with knowledge, because we know that information is power. What is the website that our viewers can go to register?
Yes, it's the book is called Tripping Over the Truth. Okay, and he is working with me because his foundation, U Foundation, and Natural Vibrant Health and the Reichert family are all sponsoring this together. It's a joint effort. And if you type in trippingoverthetruth.org and add retreat, you should get right into it.
It will definitely take you, because I did go to the website, trippingoverthetruth.org, and you can register for this historical event that's really, it's revolutionary because it's changing the mindset and it's moving us in the right direction towards reducing cancer, because we know this war on cancer is not working. All right, Dr. Yu, once again, I want to thank you for being my very special guest today, taking time out from your busy schedule, because I came to pick you up. But what are your final comments today? What would you like for our viewers?
I think, the thing is, we want the common person to know that they're empowered with knowledge. It takes about oftentimes 10 to 15 years before science becomes applicable in a clinical situation. We know the science, it's very well confirmed since 1950, and we know that if you use certain types of food, you can empower yourself to starve the cancer cells, okay? Now you need more than that, but you can add this together as a combination and it would make your life much, much better. And we're already seeing some of the clinical work worldwide that shows that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Yu. Well, this idea of starving the cancer, wow, through intermittent fasting, caloric restriction,
Right, it's all
and
the same.
getting rid of the sugar, right?
and
Starving
also-
the cancer cells.
yeah.
In fact,
I
we
did that
should
YouTube
send our
and it got
viewers
like
to that.
100,000 viewers.
Yes, please go to YouTube and put in Dr. George Yu, because that's an
So
awesome video.
you can look at that YouTube. I did it for a conference because I didn't have enough time to go there, but we call it Starving Cancer Cells.
Okay. Now, when it comes to oils, what kind of oils are we talking about? Because there are bad fats and there are good fats.
So the most important thing is that when you can do something about it. Yeah, you can do something about it before chemotherapy, you can do something before radiation, and we've been doing this for 15 years, is that we put them on a limited calories. So in other words, you drop the calories and people lose weight, okay? So that's number one. Then what happens is when you do that, automatically your body goes into what we call a mild ketosis, meaning you're using all your fat
For fuel.
for fuel.
Right. Okay. So can we stop there a minute? Because not only is there a paradigm shift taking place in the medical establishment, but in the general populace now, people are more into intermittent fasting. Okay.
Which is basically the same thing.
And okay. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that? And my sister actually lost, the one that had stomach cancer. She actually lost 10 pounds by doing intermittent fasting. And that's a window. She at night, she wouldn't eat anything past 8 o'clock. And then her first meal might be
Around noontime.
around noontime. Absolutely.
So we know that metabolism is a very important factor, but that's alone is not enough.
Right.
So now we have the whole discipline of people who are looking at metabolic blocking agents. Okay, so what fasting means basically is calorie restriction. Okay, it's just a short one. So you eat supper and you don't eat till noon, and you use up the sugar and glycogen stores in your liver, and then you go into what we call the fat fuel.
Right.
So the fat fuel creates ketones, and guess what? The brain can use it, but the cancers have a hard time using this fuel because it's a little more complex and it requires normal mitochondria, those little cigar-shaped things in your cell.
Okay.
You see, does that
That
make it
does make sense,
understandable?
but I want you to kind of break it down, please, for my viewers.
So this is a good diagram, and we made an animation so that kids in grade school should understand it. And this is a normal cell. It has a function, and this is a nucleus, and this is the mitochondria. It looks like the little cigar-shaped things, and they give you all your energy, okay? The most of the energy comes from that. But most cancer cells don't look like that. They look like this. As you said, it's a little shrunken and irregular. Now, we've been looking at all the nucleus, which looks abnormal, okay? So we've been focusing on that. But in actuality, the main cause, maybe the first cause, is these abnormal looking mitochondria, you see. They don't look like this. There's one normal one, and there's two abnormal ones. And we want to emphasize this because this is an easy way for people to visualize the whole concept of why you don't eat as much sugar. Because sugars, in many ways, cannot be used in a more sophisticated energy package called mitochondria. So that's the difference. And once you understand the difference, it makes people understand that they can actually do something about it. Okay?
Okay. So now we know you're telling our viewers to stay away from sugar, right? Because it feeds the cancer. What are some other things before we talk about the conference, which is a historical movement that you have spearheaded and you're a part of? We're going to go in more detail about this conference and who's going to be there and the format of it and where it's going to be and the fact that it's open to the public. But I really want you to speak a little bit more about other things, eliminating other foods, talk about little GMOs, why we should read our labels, why we should detox, clean your colon out. That is also a part of this healing the body and bringing the body back into balance.
Yeah, people think that eating a high-protein diet really solves the problem. It doesn't, because about 50% of the protein becomes sugar.
Yeah, you see, we had a conversation about that in my office the other day, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
when they eat, how much sugar? It's like how many grams? 30, 40?
I was to death by Dr. George Yu, and in there it's a fairly simple but succinct explanation of all the science behind what we're doing.
Well, thank you once again, Dr. Yu. You truly have empowered us today to take charge of our life and our health. God bless you. Thank you for all the work that you've been doing on the planet.
Thank you for inviting me.
At any rate, God bless you for watching our TV show today. My name is Argo Duenas with Dr. George, the world-renowned lecturer and author, Dr. George Yu, right here in Annapolis. God bless you. Remember, in this very present moment, we do have the power to take charge of our life and our health. Have a great day.